I'm Tim Kittro, and here to bring home the bacon are Big Ryan the Fat Guy.
KC Printers is at it again. Fat Guy, what's up, YouTube? It's the NFL picks against the spread for Super Bowl 57. Fat Guy, we are 50% for the year, but no one cares about that. We want to get straight into the Super Bowl. This is going to define our season. We're either going to be winners or losers, even though we both feel like losers at heart. On to the game. Kansas City at Philly. Philly -1. 60% of early bettors are on the Eagles. Fat Guy, this line, I think it opened around 1 or 1.5, depending on the book. I saw it get all the way up to 2.5. It's kind of slowly trickled back down to 1. The market was set at a pretty good price right away, and not too much has changed. We're only, 5 days away? And lots can change still, but who you got?
Speak to yourself. Speak of yourself when you speak of losers. I had a chicken dinner from Save On, and I got the deal for $21.99. I didn't lose today. Saved $11. That being said, I've liked the Eagles, as a gut pick since about week 13. I've said that in private. I don't know if I've said it on YouTube, but that has been my choice, which isn't much of a take. Like I think I said I believe them to be the best team in the league, and I think the market might be reflecting that as well. But the price is right here. You have to think, I always give these, like anticlimactic takes, but think of all the information and think of all the dollars coming in on this and all the information between those dollars. This is set. The only reason there would have been fluctuation, I think, in the line earlier is because of the Mahomes injury. And perhaps this really is a true pick'em game for the Super Bowl, removing Mahomes' high ankle sprain, because that's got to limit you a little bit, even 2 weeks and a tiny bit of change maybe since the incident. So that's still going to be niggling, as I've always hated that term, but I mean, it is a niggling injury, right? It's one that is going to haunt him to some degree. A good way of figuring out what it is, just in a weird roundabout way, is looking up Mahomes rushing props against similar type defenses and seeing the gap between that and now. That would and then also too, I would imagine that that's made up in some fashion by passing yards, or pass attempts perhaps. So those that would be one way to use a derivative market to kind of piece this whole story together. But that being said, this is just a gut pick. I highly recommend not betting this game. At least the main markets, money line, spread, and total. There is a possibility that some of the derivative and prop markets do offer some. I think a lot of them do. I'm sure the edge is going to die down over time, but I mean, you're going to you better have some sort of plan here, right? And you get a lot of why we do this too is to kind of show that your opinion isn't going to beat the market very often. You need an asymmetry of information. I know that's boring to some people, but you got to steep yourself in reality here. We don't want people to lose their money doing this. And a good way of doing that is thinking that your opinion is going to beat a market, right? A lot of when I bet is comparing a sharp market versus a not so sharp market and betting the difference, calculating my edge that way is the difference between the two. This is the sharpest line, I would imagine, of any sporting event. It's the sharpest line of the year every year. It has the most dollars pumped into it. It has the most time for the market to develop. Really, this is a 2-week line. You know what I mean? So I can't imagine that this number just is unbeatable to beat the juice on either side. You could probably make money -1 with like a standard over round for Pinnacle would be in a football game 4.7%. That's what the implied probabilities combined together is 104.7%, and their margin is at 4.7. They could probably trim it down for this game to 102. They could probably get a 2% margin. I might just have come up with something perhaps game breaking here. But then again, do you really want to risk that on the biggest game of the year? Cut your margin, maybe that's not that good of a business idea. Why give a sale on the biggest day of the year? But then again, they give them on Black Friday. Anyways, we're going to be taking the Philadelphia Eagles. I might as well just do a bit of a rundown here. Um, in terms of positions. I hate X's and O's stuff, but since we got one game on the docket, I think it is worth taking a second look at. So I guess we'll start with the receivers here. When you look at them both, at least from like I don't study rosters anymore. I mean, we used to when Big Ryan and I started modeling, and that had some success in the beginning, but like it's very hard to get that success now, especially with like the access of information that we have, even compared to what 2011 Big Rye, it's a lot different now when you look at rosters, a lot more available.
Yes.
Anyways, receivers, you'd have to give the edge here, I would imagine, to Philadelphia. I just don't see how. You have like even Brown and Smith on their own. That's kind of a powerhouse compared to what you have in a ragtag group, you could say, in Kansas City. You got two All Pros here on the Kansas City offensive line, but I don't think they're necessarily besting the Philadelphia O line. So I think that's probably a wash there. In terms of tight end, obviously you're going to go with Kansas City. Even though what's very interesting is I had this argument with someone else. When you take win probability added, I would imagine Kittle. And again, I could look this up and do the math on it. It would take me a few hours. Kittle has a couple percent, maybe not a couple percent. I bet you half a percent more impact in terms of win probability over Kelsey. Just when you take in terms of snaps, that meaningful snaps, because like a blocking snap is largely unaccounted for on the box sheet, on the box score. I mean, they have things like Pro Football Focus, but I'm not sure how like accurate that is, and there's a lot of funny business that goes along there. So I'm not sure how serious I can take those numbers, and I wouldn't anyway. Especially if I was modeling, the last thing I'd want to do is trust a third party with my inputs, because your model is only as good as your inputs too. So especially if you don't know how they're doing it or why, or if you think the numbers reflect accurately what they have. So Travis Kelsey, like maybe he should be thrown in the receiver mix to kind of level out a little bit between the two. So, but as far as tight ends, you'd have to give them the edge. Quarterback, I don't think it's arguable. Mahomes is best player in the league. Not that Hurts isn't very good, and we like him. I much prefer how Philadelphia plays over over Kansas City, and I do think that has been an asymmetry of perception, we'll call it, in that Buffalo and Kansas City were ranked ahead of Philadelphia for a long time, and San Francisco too. So maybe not San Francisco for a long time, but there was a strong gap where they were. And this market is kind of squared that circle where like this game is, they're a favorite here, but with the injury, perhaps it's a -0.5, which doesn't really mean anything. So maybe they're just a small money line favorite. Very small Philadelphia Eagles in a true uninjured full complement team. Or maybe it's just a pick 'em, but that does signal to me that perhaps there has been a little bit of a come around on the Philadelphia Eagles, because I do think they're coached much superiorly. I don't know if that's a word. They're coached much better than the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think they're the best coached team in the NFL. I think their strategy is just very, very strong, and you shouldn't use very, very in terms of doubling up on that to describe something, but I think it is very strong and maybe the best I have seen yet to date in my football watching for lack of a better term, career. But we're going to go on to the running backs. Between Sanders, Gainwell, and Boston Scott, it's not like a home run. It's pretty close. I know Pacheco's a 7th-round rookie. McKinnon is a oft-injured throwback. He really had promise in Minnesota. It's too bad we got that really big injury. Was it when he got traded to San Fran? He got it like right away. Was that the case, Big Ryan? Do you recall?
I can't remember, but he's been a shell of himself ever since, and he's had a great year though in Kansas City.
Yeah, it's been good enough for sure. And Ronald Jones is your third back. It's pretty close. It's probably like you could make an argument, I think, for a tiny edge for Philadelphia, especially how they're used too. Like maybe the system's a little bit more forgiving as well. They got a lot of rushing touchdowns for Philadelphia. I don't have it in front of me, but I think Sanders got 12, something like that. And Gainwell's got some, but Scott's got some, and Hurts has a whole bundle as well. So that would be another edge. Defense is an interesting one here. Like defensive line, especially. This is another underrated thing. A lot of guys, there's a lot of chatter about wide receivers and stuff, and especially with like the success of Cincinnati, you are looking at two of the better O lines and D lines in the NFL. You really are. And obviously, Philadelphia does it through like a multi-pronged attack, but there is something to be said for like Chris Jones is one of the best defensive players in the league. Just is makes game, and they do have rotational guys as well. The Chiefs. I mean, I don't know if that's better than Philly. They probably have a really small edge here, but like these are two like pretty decent D lines here. I don't think there is a good defense in the NFL, and obviously there has to be a best one, and the best one probably is San Francisco. But I don't think it's good in comparison to any of these offenses, not only because of rules, but because of I think like hesitancy. I guess maybe that is just stemming from rules. Is the defense is really hampered, so their behavior must be in the back of their heads, or they're subconscious to, take it light. Because even if you hit a guy clean, but it's too hard, that's an unnecessary roughness. So, just think of even for you, I guess 1990 and earlier football fans, the old games, the Steelers and the Ravens, those are different defenses. Those are different defenses. They just are. So, I mean, mind you, there aren't as offenses as high flying as the ones we have today, at least back then. So, and then we're on to linebackers here. This isn't like the greatest linebacking core on either side, but you didn't really need it that way. You could probably give the edge, I would imagine, to Philadelphia here, but that's something I'm not exactly privy to in terms of like studying. And then lastly, we'll just quickly gloss over secondary, which I can't like. This is a clear Philadelphia win. This is something that they put a lot of draft stock into, and I never thought it was a good idea, but it has worked out so far. And I do remember the one Patriots Super Bowl where they had Revis and Brandon Browner, the notorious Brandon Browner. That did actually work out that year when they signed those guys for big money. They might have traded for Browner, I don't recall, but they had to pay him. And both short-term contracts, though. Very smart of Belichick, because cornerback, once you fall off, it's not like a nice landing. It's just like your abilities literally just fall like a cryptocurrency, like a rug pull. Like it's that fast. So anyways, what does this all mean? I like Philadelphia. I think they're coached better. I don't think that there's an edge at Philadelphia -1, but I am going to be interested to see the results of this game. And I do think that they're I just think they're the best coach team in the NFL, and I want to see that succeed. So I am actually rooting for them a little bit as well. So let's go Philadelphia Eagles -1.
The one thing I want to throw in about the defense is that defensive line is just deep for Philadelphia.
Very deep.
And what we've seen with a lot of teams is you can have a great defense, but when it comes to like late third quarter, fourth quarter, you see teams like Kansas City usually kind of just tee off because it's like Mahomes dropping back and it's like there's no pass rush, which could still happen even with depth, but it sure helps to have this kind of depth. And to be fair, like I don't know how well each one of these individual guys is playing on the Philadelphia defensive line, but like Robert Quinn, Ndamukong Suh, Linval Joseph.
Joseph's third string D tackle. Are you crazy?
But that's the thing, right? Like it's, if he needs to come in and play 10 key snaps, they can get 10 snaps out of him in this type of a game. And
well, think of Justin
really
Houston. Year,
like he's done it as well.
9-10 sacks, and he's only playing a handful of snaps a game. And last time and he's totally right. Last time the Eagles won the Super Bowl, you and I liked them because of the whole year, because they had probably the deepest D line.
Yeah, and it makes such a big difference. Like it's almost, to me, more telling on how strong a defense is, because you can see a defense on paper, all the starters, and it looks great. But like once the fourth quarter hits, after playing, some of these teams are already at like 60 plays, 60 snaps on defense by the time the fourth quarter hits. And it's just like, how are you supposed to defend a 10-play drive when you just can't rush the passer? And that's where you start to see those defenses fall apart. And I think why Fat Guy is even saying that later into the games, it's just impossible to be a strong defense like it used to be.
There's the saying that I might have coined this one. There's no good defense. There's no good tired defense, and there isn't. And how do you, it's not like player to player you're going to make your team fitter. The only way to do that is through depth, and that's but we say this stuff and it's not really, it's already baked into the line. Like they're playing one of the best players ever. You know what I mean? It's not like the people that are betting this don't know this stuff already. Like I said, this doesn't provide an asymmetry information. This just is something that the both of us really like in terms of how you build a team. Like, because, this is a funny thing. I can only imagine if you gave Big Rye money to build as a general manager, I would imagine that only, what would you go? Offensive line, defensive line, quarterback, and whatever else is on a minimum contract. I would imagine that's what it is.
I'd build defense first, because you can have a wicked defense in the NFL and still be able to lose games. So you can continue to pick up, draft stock and eventually, like, quarterback could be the last piece. Like you've seen it with the strength of these young quarterbacks lately. Like quarterbacks are coming into the league and having success, 7th round last pick quarterbacks are having success in the right system. So it's, that San Fran model I think is hard to beat with what they've done and how much they put draft capital into that defensive line. But completely different conversation. On Fat Guy, what I wanted to talk about is bringing it back to like the simplest derivative market as far as Mahomes was the OU, because it opened at 50. It was bet down to 49.5, and it jumped all the way up to 51 at some places. And even right now, it's at Pinnacle. It's sitting at 50.5 with higher juice on the over. So it makes me think that Mahomes is healthier, and you can kind of see that with the line coming, from 2.5 down to 1. So it will be interesting to see how he progresses. But it's funny how you don't even need to follow like the day-to-day on what's happening. You can just check the betting markets, and you'll have a pretty good idea.
They know
of what's going to be going on, which
they really, really know. It's because think about it. There's a big difference in accountability of information. So let's think about it. If you get your information from a pundit, they don't, from your Stephen A. Smiths, your Colin Cowherd, they don't have any accountability. You know what I mean? If they're wrong, it doesn't matter. They can justify it any which way they slice it.
Same with us. We're the same way. So they don't take anything we say.
Well, there's a difference. A lot of the stuff that I say, that's fair, except for the stuff I say that I bet.
Yeah,
I'm
true.
an active bettor. That's, I can't get into it further than that, but I'm a very active bettor.
I want to bring up another interesting thing. Sorry to cut you off, but I was just checking because you were talking about the juice being charged at Pinnacle could be lower during the Super Bowl, and I'm just checking like some of the limits, and I don't know all of the limits for all of the games for spreads, but the spread in Canadian dollars, the max bet right now is $147,000.
That's way higher than
Canadian,
usual.
which is about like 110,000 US for all you American listeners, which is more. I'm pretty confident. Fat Guy's saying it's more. I'm pretty sure that it's more. And we're still like 5 days away. Sometimes the totals can get higher, 24 hours before or day of or hours before. But for it to be this far away. So Fat Guy is really onto a good point about the juice for this game could probably be, minus 102 on both sides or even minus 101, and they'd probably still make away with money depending on the market. Like a spread market, or a money line market, obviously not derivative markets. It's way tougher.
Well, yeah. That's never going to have that type of accuracy, but they're over on right now. I just put it in my calculator, 2.38%. So we're getting into baseball territory. That's what Pinnacle's currently offering. Some of the other big ones looks unchanged, but I mean, that's, maybe Pinnacle. I've never really bet the Super Bowl aside from taking bets, aside from making personal bets with other people that I know. I've never made it, I don't think, with a book before, so I've never really noticed. And there you go. That's a really low over on 2.0%. And here you go. Unabated has it as the spread should be favored for the Eagles minus 104 on -1 and plus 104 for the Kansas City Chiefs. So this is suggesting a reasonable favoritism. Not reasonable. We're talking, maybe an extra percent on top of the 1 point. But that being said, that is something. So that's from the unabated blended market. I've been playing around with that tool a little bit. Have a lot of mixed reviews. Anyways,
Fat Guy onto the lightning round. Kansas City at Philly.
not financial advice, not a lock. I do like the Eagles. Let's go Eagles.
And congratulations to Mike J for going 2-0. As you can see here, there's a lot of people that went 2-0, but I think Mike J had an OU of 42, which put him the closest to the 23-20 43-point finish.
Pretty good.
But congratulations as well to Phil Dab Bag Up. Congrats to Jinx Eugene, Jameson, Mickey, as well as Starfire. Fat Guy, we were 1-1 on the weekend. And congratulations to Milo They, who is 9-3-0 going into the Super Bowl. So unless Starfire picks the opposite of Milo They, he is going to lock up that win with a Super Bowl win. So good luck to you two to see who can win. But either of you is going to go either 9-4 or 10-3, which is spectacular for a playoff run. Fat Guy JS715, name of the week.
Burrowhead Bet BR likes that. I don't know how I like. Those are my best delivery, but Burrowhead Bet BR likes that. So he bets Big Rye likes Burrowhead. Yeah, I would imagine that he does.
I do love Burrowhead. Thank you to the channel members. We appreciate you all for sticking with us through this season. If you like what we do, become a member, $5 a month. Make your pick against the spread for Super Bowl 57 at Big Rye and thefatguy.com. Fat Guy, that's it. Super Bowl in the books, I guess. So I'll ask you a personal question. Have you had any personal wagers yet for the Super Bowl?
Yes. Ironically, it would be financially more fruitful for me if Kansas City wins, which is kind of funny, but I would imagine that change is pretty quick here. So someone made a large bet with me. Obviously, it's in my favor. I got a good number, let's put it that way, on the Eagles, but that was like literally an hour after the Kansas City game. So maybe they thought that's the injury would sway in his favor. That's probably it. So at this standing, Kansas City would be a better result for me, but I'm gonna guess that's the only, I might end up getting, this is more than likely what's gonna happen. If like the Eagles win by 1, I'll probably win everything, or I'll just take the added the added edges, we'll just call it. That's more than likely what's going to happen.
It'd be interesting to see if you could find a bet of Eagles win by 1, and if how that would do payout wise for you. If it'd be better to bet them at a traditional book, or have the benefits that you might have.
Yes.
But that's it for us, guys. Thank you for watching. Thank you guys for helping us continue doing it this year. NFL picks against the spread, Super Bowl 57 in the books. Good luck and enjoy the Super Bowl. Go Rihanna.